Welcome everyone to this morning's webinar. We're really excited to really have a good conversation back and forth on how to build a rocking content marketing strategy. This could be applied for this year or for any of your plans or schedules coming up. And again, you can start it immediately, or as we all like to do, plan things out and then work our plan. So,
Right, exactly. All right. So just a few housekeeping items. We are recording this session. We will be sending it out to everybody who is registered. And so if you ever want to refer to this, that's great. Go ahead and share it. That would be even better. And so that's item number one. Number two is we are also producing an ebook on the same topic that we will release to you guys in a couple weeks. That'll just have a more concrete and written outline of what has been talked here in the webinar. And so you can have that as well.
and we will also be posting this on our YouTube channel later today. So you can go to YouTube and look up Nuvi, and you'll find our other past webinars as well as this one talking about content marketing. All right, yeah, just to introduce us real quick, my name's Scott Kendall Brown. I've been here at Nuvi for 2.5 years. I started when there were literally about 25 of us here in the team, and it's been a wild ride. And I know a lot of you that have been with us for a long time or just getting started with Nuvi have seen all the advancements and things that we've been able to do, and we're super excited for especially the next several months. So keep your eyes open for the things that are coming from Nuvi. And my man here, Darren, is my partner in crime. He helps us do all this content, and he is a very educated and smart man when it comes to content marketing. So he's going to be able to answer a lot of our questions, and we're going to be able to talk back and forth and maybe throw in some jokes along the way. We'll see what happens.
I hope so. You guys can go ahead and ask questions in the questions box in the GoToWebinar panel, and we'll do our best to answer those questions as we kind of go through the webinar where it makes sense to answer the questions. If there's a question that may not apply to everyone, we'll reach out to you after the webinar and have a one-on-one discussion and make sure that we get all your questions answered. So just as a precursor, let's jump right in then. So first of all, content marketing. Also, Nuvi's awesome. Content marketing. So hopefully everybody here has some background in digital marketing or and has some understanding of what content marketing is or does. But more than anything, we just want to make sure that everyone here understands why they should do content marketing. And then throughout this webinar, how to actually create a strategy for that content marketing. We won't touch a whole lot on the actual implementation of writing the content, which writers are there or how to get that all done. But hopefully we can give you guys enough of a strategy outline that you guys can go and meet with your teams and come up with your ideas and have a good concrete plan that will generate you results for your business. Not just for this year, but you can do it in a month-long sprint or a year-long strategy or however you want to do it, right? However your organization works.
Yeah, and you're definitely going to have to customize this to your company, your brand, your audience. We'll talk a lot about that, depending on whether you're creating content specifically for social media, if you're creating content for B2B situations where you're doing ebooks and downloads. We're definitely going to jump into that right now.
Okay, perfect. So the first thing we wanted to cover was the benefits of content marketing. What are the goals of it? How can it actually help you in your business? So number one, it it delivers your brand message. Whatever it is that your message is to the world, it's the primary way that you can deliver that to your target audience. Whether that be through a blog post or through a long form piece of content or a video or a social media post or an email. Those are all different pieces of content that can be created and used in order to deliver that brand message. It also helps you to solve problems, not just for you. Obviously, your business has a problem of needing more business. And so that problem can get solved through content marketing, but more than anything, it solves the problems of your target audience. You can talk to the people that you are focused on, and you can solve and provide your expertise and advice to them in order for them to help solve their own problem. And in doing that, a couple bullet points down, you can see that also positions your brand as a thought leader in the industry. People will come to you for that knowledge. You will be the expert, and people want to work with the experts. When in my experience, people want to understand how to solve their problem, but they don't always have the time to solve their own problem. So even if you give them all the keys to the kingdom, you give them all your secrets, they're probably still going to hire you, hopefully, because they don't necessarily have the resources or the time to do it themselves, right? This allows you to generate, nurture, and close business. And once you do have business, you can use that content to continue to inform and educate and delight the customers you already have. Content really is the driving force behind all your marketing efforts. Your ads, your blog posts, your website, your emails, all of that is it's you can't drive results using those methods without the content that you create.
Yeah, I remember. I remember when I started. I didn't think I would reference the beginning of my time here at Nuvi, but when I started here at Nuvi, we were literally creating the first landing pages and trying to redesign the website that we had. And a lot of you that may or may not have ever seen our first website, it had smoke and it was like there was lightning and it was very hard to read and understand and consume. So we're diving into that process of redoing and recreating. And my boss came to me and said, "Hey, we want to create a content marketing strategy." And I said, "Okay, let's figure out what exactly we need to do in order to create that." And we took the steps necessary to start seeing the benefits that we're seeing today in being positioned as a thought leader, generating, nurturing, and closing business, and all the steps that you take along the way to get the content train going. We like to refer to it as the content train because the more you create, the more demand there is, and the more demand there is, the more people are consuming and reading and understanding about you, your space, and all the things that make your business or your brand great.
Perfect. So the very first thing you got to do is identify what your goals are with your content marketing. What do you want to accomplish with your content? And this can be a number of different things on a sub level, but your main goal for creating content should always be customers. You know, your main goal should be either getting customers, nurturing leads to become customers, delighting your customers. Everything about your content should point and talk to directly your customers, whether that be whether you're a B2B company or a B2C company, or whether your customer is really your partner. Any one of those things, you have to have that person in mind while you create that content. And that should be your main goal. Now, some sub goals on that would also be throughout the sales process, generating those leads and traffic, nurturing those leads to a point where they're actually interested in you and your business, closing those leads by convincing them that your option is better than your competitors. And then once they become a customer, you can continue to use that content again to delight those current customers, make them become brand evangelists, and really help them to love you. And if they do that, then they'll refer you to their friends, they'll talk about you, they'll share your stuff, and everything just kind of explodes from there.
Yeah, one of my favorite content producers that he's creating content specifically for his quote unquote customers is Darren Ravel. Do you ever follow Darren Ravel on
I haven't, no.
ESPN and sports? He is constantly sharing amazing things, and some of the things that I really like lately that really hit home to me is he literally goes through packs of baseball cards from the like 1990s and 1980s that where I grew up with, and he goes through and he names the players without looking at their names. Like he looks at the picture on the baseball card and he's like, "Oh, that's I can't even think of players off the top of my head. That's Jose Canseco. That's Bo Jackson. That's Roger Clemens. And he's naming people that I've never ever even heard of. But it's a great little piece of content that brings hits me perfectly, and it brings back memories of my childhood and me growing up and me drawing mustaches on baseball players' faces on their cards and changing their names to say funny things and the things you do as a kid. Great content producer and a great content specifically for his audience or for his customers.
Right. That's perfect. Perfect example. All right. So once you kind of have that goal in mind, you know what you want to accomplish with your content, you want to audit and kind of look at what you already have. You don't want to recreate the wheel. So you want to be able to tell, where is my current content fitting into the mix? How is that performing? What needs refreshing? And what can I use over and over and over again so that I don't have to spend the time and the money and the energy recreating that same piece when you could just tweak it a little bit to make that work, right? So there's a few questions that you should ask as you're auditing your current content. Number one, is my content being viewed? If it's not being viewed, then it's not worth anything, right? You can have all the content in the world, but if nobody's partaking of it, if nobody's seeing it, then there's something wrong. Either you need to fix the piece of content, or it's not focusing on the right audience, or you're just not distributing it very well at all. The other question is, am I reaching my target audience? Are the people that are engaging with my content, and you can see this through Google Analytics, the audiences tool on there. But you really want to make sure that you are talking directly to the people that you want to be working with. You can also include some value to people around them, or even just people in general. But the content itself, the goal is to reach and educate and engage with that target audience. Again, what common questions are not being answered in my current content? So really, the whole thing, especially when you consider what people use the internet for these days, they're always using the internet and Google to search for answers to what their questions are. So make a list of all the questions your target audience may be asking, not just for you and your business, but in general. If there's a common question that's asked by a certain position that you're going after, or if you're a headphone company, maybe you want to go for your extreme sports junkies. Like, what are the questions that they commonly ask, or whatever it is that you're doing? What are the common questions that are not already being answered in your content that you continue to write about and provide value on? And then, yeah.
Yeah, and we like to ask questions starting at the top, right? Especially B2B, you're going to want to ask the most broad, high-level questions initially. You're gonna want to ask, how do I create a content marketing schedule, right? How do I create social media ads? The questions that are going to hit the biggest audience that has the most potential to answer the most questions. Start at the top. Start with the broad questions, and then you can work your way down to be more specific as your audience and as your content progresses. Because again, as Darren was saying, you can reuse that content over and over again. If you've already created the broad questions, you can start to answer the more specific ones.
Right. Not only more specific, but also more tailored to who you are, right? You don't always want to write about yourself. And so you want to answer the broad questions that people have in order to get that traffic in. And then as you kind of filter through that, you answer and talk more about yourself and what you do, rather than necessarily, what the answers or the education is, right? And then the last question is, where in the process do I lose the most potential customers? This really takes a deep dive into what you're currently doing and what's currently working. But you may find that once you get someone to a demo request, you close them 80% of the time. And so you have a really great piece of content. But the problem is you're not getting enough people into the funnel at all, right? So maybe that's where you lose the most potential customers, is before they even get there. Or maybe you're getting tons of traffic to your website. You have your great e-commerce platform. You're selling something online, and they put things in their cart, but you're finding that you lose people there more frequently than you would like, right? So maybe you create a piece of content or an email or something like that sends to them and helps educate them or convince them further, and tries to get people to, once they get to the site, actually close rather than fall through, in that middle section of the funnel. So where in the process are you losing the most potential customers? Where do you need to fix that hole? And you can fill that hole with your content.
Yeah, real quick, I just wanted to jump in and play a little game with you, Darren.
Oh, okay.
Play a little game. Let's jump into this real quick. I want to have someone message us. It looks like we got some good questions coming in, but I want someone to jump on the chat here real quick and message us from where they're listening from. Give us your name and where you're listening from, and we will send you some Nuvi swag. So the first one to jump on chat and message us right now, we will send you some Nuvi swag from Nuvi. For those of you that have received some Nuvi swag in the past, you know that we don't mess around with our swag around here. So let's keep going on, and we'll announce the winner here shortly. Yeah,
it's blowing up. That's awesome. All right, cool. So once you've audited your current content, again, you kind of want to rehash those goals that you set. So you kind of have a broad goal already in mind. You've audited your content. Now you want to kind of set specific goals for each kind of piece of content that you're creating. Again, many of you have probably heard the SMART goal analogy, or anagram. I don't know what it's called, but it stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And so just a quick example of something like this. One goal you might have with content is to grow your business. And that's a very broad goal, and it's a great goal, sure, and hopefully you will reach that goal. But in order to make your content worth it, and in order to kind of drive that that focus that you need to have a more specific goal. And so to go through the SMART goal process just real quick, and this is true for everything that you do basically. So we're not going to touch on it a ton, but in regards to your content, you want to make sure that you kind of have this kind of framework of goal. So you can be more specific. I will acquire this number of new clients. Measurable. I will measure my progress by doing this, and I can report on that and I can be accountable to that. I will attain, my goal is attainable because this is my benchmark data. And so, this much over that benchmark data is reasonable. You want to make sure that it is a reasonable goal that you can reach, and that it's relevant to you and your business, that it actually fulfills, maybe your goal is to grow your business. So is the specific goal you're setting for your content something that is building up to that main goal of growing your business? And then is it time based? How long do you have to complete this goal? And that kind of gives you a little bit more motivation. It gives you a time frame to work in, and it helps drive that project management so that things actually get done.
Yeah, we love talking about goals, especially in the month of January, the beginning of the year. Um, we were looking at our year coming up. We're starting in February and going to next February here at Nuvi, and we're going to be we have our content calendar we've been building out, and we are looking forward to the next coming months and quarters and years.
Perfect. So by the time you've gotten through this process, you should have a more specific goal. So here's the broad goal. I want to grow my business. And here's the more smart goal. I will acquire 3 new clients for my consulting business within 2 months. So there's the time by doing these things, asking for referrals, launching a social media marketing campaign, blah, 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 right? Now for your content, it might be something like, we will generate 20 leads by writing a piece of content that's based on this topic and delivering it through email and through social media ads. And we'll measure that through our Google Analytics, or something like that. And so for content related, for a SMART goal, it might be, something very specific to your funnel. I want to generate this much traffic to my website, or I want to increase my conversion rate from the top of the funnel to this middle part of the funnel by this much. Or I want to make sure that any marketing qualified lead, 50% of the marketing qualified leads get converted into a sales qualified lead. And those are the kind of goals that you want to accomplish with your content. Okay, perfect. The next step then is once you have your goal, you got to do a little bit of research, right? And this is true not only for the content itself. Obviously, you want to have a good research base to your content, but we're referring more to the research for your content strategy. What are the kinds of things you need to know as you create your content strategy?
Yeah, I mean, we're all communications professionals, right? I mean, a lot of us have gone to school for communications, and we love our research, right? We love looking in, we love looking back, trying to figure out how people do it better, how we can improve, and take some risks, do the things that we can to take some risks. So some of the questions we should be asking ourselves: what does my target audience care about? How does my target audience digest content? And what are the common questions asked during the sales process? So looking at your content specifically, you're definitely going to want to know your audience. Darren mentioned earlier that you can look at your Google Analytics for sure, and I mentioned this in our last webinar that when we looked at our audience here at Nuvi, of course we're a tech company, we're social media, and some of the things that popped out to me that were interesting is that our audience really cares about they're TV lovers, and they love entertainment, and so we tend to, a lot of our content we produce, we're monitoring social media conversations surrounding television television things that are happening. So we monitor the Bachelor television show, or we monitor the presidential inauguration, or we monitor the Grammys and the Super Bowl. Those are all TV oriented things that we're not just doing those by chance. We're doing those specifically because that's what our audience really likes to consume. Just like Darren Ravel, what I referenced earlier with the baseball cards, like that was specific to me because I instantly go back into nostalgia and go back into being a kid again. And then it's also very important to understand what are the common questions asked during the sales process. Talk to your team, talk to your teammates. I meet all the time with our sales team and finding out what questions people are asking about. What are the things that the customers want to know? Like, are they specifically asking about how to do a certain task? Like maybe specifically for Nuvi, maybe a potential customer or client is looking to build a command center, right? They want televisions on the wall of their office with social media streaming on that nonstop. Um, so then I'm definitely going to be creating event specific content that tells people, one, how to monitor specific events, and how to set up your command center. What visuals you should be showing. What are the things that your clients and audience are going to be interested in when they come into your office, and what would be impressive to those individuals and those people. So make sure you understand the common questions that are asked during that sales process, so you understand your audience as clearly and as understandably as possible.
Right, exactly. And not only do you understand your audience better that way, but you can also deliver and shorten the sales cycle by providing the answers to those questions in the content that you have. Especially if you have some sort of nurture program involved where you have, a set cadence for, which content is being shared and how often it's being shared, you can actually map out very distinctly what your customer journey looks like, what questions they need answered, and you can create the content and send that content to new leads in a manner that makes sense, and they get all their questions answered even before they talk to a salesperson. So when the salesperson picks up the phone after they've called or they've emailed or they filled out a form, they've already got all the questions answered, and they basically are just saying, okay, where do I purchase, your service, or where do I, or they're on your website with e-commerce and they already have all the specs that you've done, for your product. They have all the information they need to say, okay, yeah, this is a great product. I'm just going to buy this right away. And they don't even have to interact with you or your business to make that purchase, right? And so it just makes things so much easier to understand what the common questions are and use those questions as the topics for your content.
All right. Before we jump into this identifying your buyer personas, we're going to give away our little prize that little game we just played. We're going to give it to Yvette Deschamps. She's messaging us from Durban, South Africa. So good afternoon, evening. Is that what we decided it would be? Yvette Deschamps. Is that? I'm so sorry if I'm just destroying your
That's
name.
Awesome. Welcome. I think we have a few people from South Africa, from Europe, and yeah, I mean, that's awesome, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us from all over the world, and from all over the time zones. I know we have a few people from New Zealand that weren't able to make it because it's like 3 o'clock in the morning there, just waiting for the recording. So again, thank you so much for coming. We're obviously not done yet, but we just wanted to again shout out to all of you that are taking time out of your day. I know you're busy, and hopefully we can continue to provide some value to you.
I want to play one more quick little game. Also, for those that are listening via recording, as we're going to be posting this to our YouTube channel, or if you receive it in your inbox and you weren't able to attend live, and for those of you that are attending live, you can also play this game as well. But find our Nuvi Twitter handle at Nuvi NUVI. Follow us on Twitter and send us a direct message, and we'll pick 5 winners out of those people that send us direct messages. And we'll also send you guys. We'll message you and find out your shirt size, and we'll send you some Nuvi swag. So follow us at Nuvi, and we'll do that for the next. Let's do 48 hours until Friday afternoon. So
okay, cool.
We'll pick a couple of winners and go from there.
Awesome. All right. Just to click on that.
Did I totally just kill it?
No, you're good.
I totally just kill what we're talking about.
So what are the common questions asked? And this like we said, it goes into identifying your buyer personas. Like, who are you actually talking to? Make sure you know who your best customers are, and try to get more of those customers, right? And so if you know kind of the basics of the demographics and the questions that are answered and the messages that are needed for your buyer persona, then you can generate a lot more of your best customers, and they become the people who love you, and they become your brand evangelists, and they continue to share your content and your message. And then finally, as far as the audience goes, how do you want to talk to them? They're depending on what your offering is or who your customers are, they might want your content in a completely different way. If I'm talking to a SaaS company and they're very business oriented and there's lots of developers, they may not want to talk on the phone so much during the sales process. They might just want a quick email, or they might be more inclined to watch a YouTube video than to read an ebook. Or if you're selling something online, maybe a video is the best thing for them because it really dives into the uses of your product rather than just focusing on an email or a social media post or whatever it is. And you should be using a combination of all of these things, right? You should be able to say, this subsection of my audience really likes to read ebooks, while this subsection, they're hardly on social media at all. They don't really like the spammy emails, so I'm going to do something different with them. I'm going to, maybe engage with that audience only at trade shows, and I have a certain trade show content or whatever it is, right? And so you want to make sure that it makes sense to your audience, the way that you're distributing and creating your content. What types of content you're creating.
Yeah, I like to make sure we understand who we're talking to. I personally, I have a telephone at my desk. I have it on silent, and I do not really accept phone calls. I really would prefer to get that email. Send me a quick message, hit me up that way. But I am not a phone talker. I would text over, talk on the
Basically
phone
anything, yeah.
all day long. And I know people that are not that way. My boss is that way, right? He is. I'll call them. Give me their phone number. I'll call them right now. But I am definitely more of a communicate through the fingers than talking on the phone. So
Yeah, perfect. So once you've decided how you want to talk to them, what types of content is the best for your audience, you kind of have to. Oh yeah, so here's some more questions to ask as you decide how you want to talk to them. What are your main messages? What tone or voice is right for your brand? Whether it's more professional or more fun, or whether you have certain buzzwords that you want to keep using. What a tagline is, that kind of stuff, and you can kind of play around that. Some great companies that do this road, like Old Spice. They have a very specific tone and message that they do with their commercials and with their online videos. And it's crazy and it's fun, and that's kind of because their audience likes that kind of stuff. It's more a millennial audience. They're more into that entertainment side of things. But you might go to Microsoft, and Microsoft certainly doesn't have that at all. They are more focused toward the business and to the heads of families and things like that. And so they're much more professional. They don't take those risks. And so you really need to find the niche that your customers in, and speak to them in the way that they like to be spoken to, not just in the types of content or in the distribution, but also just in the tone of your voice, into what the feeling is emitted from your content. And then obviously we've already talked about what content formats should I focus on. Okay, and then you want to make sure that you really hit on the things that make your business unique. What is it that that not only makes it so that you solve their question or their problem in a way that is the right way to solve them, but that you are communicating why you are the person that needs to solve it in that way. Your competitors may solve the same problem in the same way as you, so you need to find out and really nail down not just what your buyer persona needs and wants and know your buyer persona in and out. You need to know yourself in and out as well as it relates to your competitors, and just the world and the industry in general. How do you differ from the norm? How do you differ from your competitors? How do you promote yourself to be cutting edge or innovative? People want to have the best, and the best is always the innovative thing.
yeah, if one thing I've been doing lately that really helps me get to know Nuvi and our company as a general is, one, we hired a new person, and two, we got a couple new interns. And if you want to get to know yourself, and then what kind of voice you need to speak in, and how you need to talk, and what your company and your voice and what makes you unique, describe it to someone else. You don't have to hire someone, but describe it to someone else. Describe them what you're doing, what you're trying to do. It's kind of like that elevator pitch, right? You're that 15 to 20
Right.
second kind of description of what it is you do and what you're trying to do. But I've really noticed that a lot over the last couple of weeks, that I've been really looking inwardly and trying to be like, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? What am I trying to teach these new people, as well as these interns, they'll be able to, one, know Nuvi inside and out, but also two, they'll be able to take that information and better portray in the content that we're producing.
Okay, perfect. We had one question. We just want to double check. Someone said that our voices cut out. If you could just let us know if you can hear us, that'd be great. Also, we had another question. How do you determine how much or how frequently to post content? And that's a great question. So there's kind of two different sides to that, and we can kind of dive into this as well right now. Um, is there's different avenues by which you post content. So for instance, you may have a social media account that you're posting on 4 times a day, and that works great for your audience, right? Whereas on your blog, you might only be posting once or twice a week, or once or twice a month, as the case may be. As a rule of thumb on social media, there are general guidelines. You can search like, how often should I post on Twitter, or how often should I post on Facebook? And there's a bunch of research by a bunch of third party people that tell you, basically post once a day on Facebook at least, post once a day on LinkedIn at least, post 4 to 12 times a day on Twitter. And so you kind of play around with that. Now, specific to your brand, you'll find that you just need to test things out on social media. Try posting 4 times a day for a week and see how the engagement is. Then the next week, try posting 6 times a day. Then the next week, try posting once a day and see, how much engagement you're actually getting and where the drop offs are. And it does take some time and some stuff like that in order to do that. But at the end of the day, you can continue to refine that need. Now, as far as other content is concerned on your website or anything like that, basically the more the merrier, for blog content, for ebooks, for webinars, all that kind of stuff, the more the merrier. And the more content you have, the more you have to work with for the most part. There's not ever too much content. If I've seen websites that have hundreds of pieces of content, and you know what? One of those pieces of content is going to resonate with their audience better than something else. And so then the trick is not so much how much content or how frequently to post content, but is how then do I organize all this content in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like I really need to jump in and describe real quickly. One of the benefits of using Nuvi is that we have tools that will show you as you're posting and building your content. It will show you exactly when you should post, what time and what day of the week, when are you getting the best results. And again, that's very specific to the different platforms. So if you're going to be posting specifically on Twitter, or if you're going to be doing Instagram, Facebook, really hit those prime times that your audience is there, that your audience is going to be able to listen and engage in. We've all done it. We've all created content that we have posted, and we thought, man, if I would have just gotten that out an hour earlier, if I would have just gotten that out if I would have put that out in the morning instead of at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or if I would have put that out on Saturday morning or Sunday morning when I know people are consuming, or we've even created content specifically for the day after Thanksgiving, when we know that people are either going to be at their family's house or at their in-laws' house, and they're going to be looking at their phones, consuming content that where they actually have some downtime, and they're going back and reading that article that they wanted to read, or they're going back and looking up at that blog that their coworker told them about, but they just didn't have time until they were able to take a break and jump on and look at those pieces of content. So there's definitely a strategy there, and it's definitely unique to each and every brand, client, and company that is your company. And again, that goes back to knowing you and yourself and your company and what the needs are there.
Right. So we actually have quite a few additional questions. I hope you guys don't mind that we take some time to answer those. Obviously, it's going to make the webinar a little bit longer, which I'm totally okay with. So if any of you need to go in it for a specific reason, for a meeting or something like that, we will be sending you the recording. But we're just going to kind of sift through some of these questions real quick. Number one is, what is a good way to get to know your audience or understand what their questions are? This is an awesome question. Now, research it doesn't necessarily have to be just the type of research you might do for a school paper. My favorite type of research is talking to the salesperson, the person who is talking to customers before they close. And not every organization has those questions or has those salespeople, but if you do, talk to the salesperson. They always know, okay, what are the hot buttons? What are the things that the potential customer almost always loves about your pitch or about your product? And what are the questions that they ask before that, before the close happens? Those are that is the best way, in my opinion, to get to know what your customers care about the most. And because that's the point of sale, and before they make a real purchase decision, you want to make sure that they have all their check marks checked off, right? So that's a good way to get to know your audience. If you don't have a sales team, or if you're like an e-commerce platform or something like that, there's always a way for people to get information, whether that's through a contact us form on your website, or whether that's an FAQ section, and if you do have things like that, utilize those, because people will not purchase unless they've gotten those questions answered. And so they will be asking you those questions. There's not really any way, if you're getting customers, to not have not have some sort of resource to find out what kind of questions they're answering or asking before they make the sale.
Yeah, one of the strategies that a lot of our customers use here at Nuvi is they use Nuvi and the social media data to research their audience. For example, we had a large pastry maker customer that wanted to know everything and everyone that was talking about donuts in their region, in their state, in South Carolina. I think it was South Carolina. And so they were monitoring the word donuts, hashtag donuts, everything surrounding the word donuts, so that they better understand who was posting on social media about donuts and what were they talking about. And one of the things that they immediately found was that these people that were talking about donuts were talking about donut sushi, hashtag donut sushi. Now, I love sushi. I didn't like it until I got married. The wife, kind of slowly introduced me to the kinds of sushi that I liked best. But I love donuts as well. And so when I heard donut sushi, I thought those two do not go together. But upon further research, they found out that donut sushi was actually these artisan donut makers in their region that were creating donuts that looked like sushi rolls. They had everything from oh, my wife would totally laugh at me trying to come up with the names of sushi rolls, but the different kinds of sushi rolls. So they were using frosting and decoration to create these donuts that looked like sushi. And so our client understood that this simple form of artistic creativity and creating a pastry that looked like sushi was really resonating with their audience. And so they were able to take that kind of research, that understanding of their audience in that location, and create a complete ad campaign surrounding that, create their own products surrounding that, creating their own donuts that look like sushi, and send those marketing materials out to their audience, both socially as well as through flyers and billboards and other pieces of content, to directly hit that audience. And so that's one of the great things about understanding social media is you can really learn a lot about your audience and your potential clients or clients through understanding what it is they're talking about on social media and what resonates with them. Not even just at work, but the things that they're consuming or the things that they're passionate about.
Perfect. And another question that kind of tag teams onto one of the last questions we talked about. But Sarah asked, I've heard about the idea of content overload. What are your thoughts on this? My personal opinion on this matter is that content overload is more a reference to over delivery of content, not over creation of content. If you're sending out an email every day with a piece of content, that's, in my opinion, what content overload is. And so you need to make sure that you're delivering things, that aren't in your face so much, but as far as the content creation goes, I've never heard or experienced, I've been working at a content agency for almost 3 years now. And there's never once been a time where someone said, whoa, we're creating too much content, or had a potential customer be like, you guys are helping me way too much, basically would be the nutshell of what they're saying. But there has been times where it's like, you guys are spamming me, you're sending me too much content. You're hitting me up way too frequently on all these different channels. That's where the content overload happens. So my suggestion would be not necessarily, my biggest suggestion then on this front is don't be creating content too fast just because you won't be able to have the runway to distribute and utilize that content effectively. So you can create all the content in the world, but you're still going to have to deliver it in a timely and in an organized manner on that front. Okay, and another question. I work for a company that has a couple of different audiences: ATV users, dirt bike users, adventure bike users, etc. And our dirt bike audience is larger. We would like to cater to each audience, but when I post content for the ATV users, it doesn't get much attention. Do I keep trying to grow that audience, or should I cater to the larger audience? Now, this is a great question. Almost every single company has more than one buyer persona. There's not just one very specific niche that you're going for. So if you are catered toward dirt bike users and ATV users, you're definitely going to want to create content that caters toward each one. Now, there's going to be some overlap. Obviously, they're both extreme sports. They both deal with, with machinery that that runs, basically. And so we want to make sure that we're talking to each one individually as well. And then the thing that needs to change there again is the distribution of it, right? So if you have a video for bike riders and you have a video for ATV riders, you're going to want to find a way to segment that audience. Whether you're using hashtags on social media, where you've segmented your email list to include dirt bike users and ATV users, or whether on your website you have a section for dirt bike users and another section for ATV users. Basically, you want to have some sort of catered strategy specific to each buyer persona, right? So in a little bit, we're going to talk about the actual creation of the strategy. And it's not just, you don't want to just take your whole strategy as a whole necessarily. You'd want to create a brand new strategy with all the steps in there for each one of your buyer personas. Hopefully that helps a little bit. As far as your question as to which one you should focus on more, focus on the one that makes you more money. That's the biggest thing. If you have to choose between one or the other, focus on the one that is more beneficial to your business. Okay, and then okay, how do you find the balance between pushing out content that is advertises what you do, and pushing out content that is just enjoyable or relevant to your audience? We will get to this in a little bit, so I'm going to wait to answer that question. I'm a social media associate who works at a small marketing company, and part of my job is to post about themes related to our company. We do all facets of marketing, such as SEO, graphic design, social media. What is the best way to post about something abstract like marketing? John, this is a great question again. And just like I feel like this kind of ties into the last question that Hugo asked about the dirt bikes and the ATVs, is basically you have to segment your audience. There's no way around it. People want to be spoken to specifically. If it doesn't resonate to them specifically, then they're not that interested. So in an attempt to capture all that audience, if you write something that's too broad, you really don't capture any of your audience, right? So unfortunately, you have to spend a little bit more resource in order to cater to the people who want SEO, and the people who want content, and the people who want landing pages, and the people who want social media, right? And unfortunately, especially in this field, having worked in it, there are a lot of companies where there are people who only do social media, who only do SEO, who only do landing pages, that kind of thing. And so it is needed to kind of segment your efforts in order to cater to each one of those. Okay, perfect. So we're going to continue on then. Hopefully we've answered most of your questions. Keep them coming. We're loving this. Okay, perfect. I think we kind of touched on this next slide already a little bit, but we can continue on with that.
Yeah, I mean, just specific, and we can go back to these two questions that we just talked to. And John, in being a marketing agency, or being in marketing, trying to market marketing, is an obstacle that we run into a lot. Is that here at Nuvi, we're marketing to marketers. Most of our customers are agencies, PR agencies, advertising agencies, and people that have clients, and we're trying to find out the things that appeal to them. And the things that appeal to them, again, are the things that are, one, going to help them do their job, and two, answer the questions that they have. And so, as a understanding how unique you are in what the things that you're able to do, you're going to be able to address those specific needs. So maybe your graphic design department is really producing some amazing things, and that's what you need to promote, because those are going to be the pain points for your customers and clients, are the things that they are lacking, the things that they need, and the problem that you're going to solve.
Perfect. I'll look at click first. All right, here's some questions that you should ask when you're kind of listing out the things that make you and your content unique. Number one, what are the main pain points you solve? We've touched on that several times, but this is the core value that you deliver to your customers. If you don't understand this, you're missing something. What differentiates you from the competition? For your competitors that are doing the same thing you are, what makes you different? Is it your service? Is it your price? Is it the way you do it? Do you have some sort of proprietary method that maybe they don't quite understand as well? Is it the way that it integrates with some other business processes? Is it a superior, piece to a part that may be on your product that's better than someone else's? Again, to the headphone example, if you have a better bass mechanism, maybe that's your differentiator. And then finally, what topics do you want to be considered the expert in? And this is key for a lot of reasons. Number one is, again, people want to work with the best. They want to work with the experts. And number two, if you're creating content as if you are the expert, you're going to get a lot of value from that through social media shares, as well through SEO value. People will engage more with you if you are talking and presenting yourself as the expert in a certain topic. So you want to know exactly which topics are the ones that you want, you will really want to hit on. All right. So here we have a funnel, basically, and this is kind of the nitty gritty of basically this whole strategy, right? And again, so this is kind of where we answer that question of how do you balance, the stuff that's about you versus the stuff that's entertaining or delights your audience, and this is where you kind of evaluate what you're already doing and what you need to do based off of what results you're already getting, right? So here's the funnel. Obviously, you've got the top, the middle, and the bottom. That's the way I like to think of it. At the top, you've got the traffic, the actual, the masses of people you want to get into the funnel. The middle is where those people become actual leads. You sift them out and you get the people who actually are interested in a solution that is like yours. And at the bottom, this is where you convince them that you are the right solution versus your competitors. And on the right-hand side here, I've kind of listed this out a little bit. This traffic stuff is not about you almost ever. You take these big brands that are doing stuff like these huge videos, they get millions and millions of views. They're almost never actually about the brand. It's the brand doing something else or talking about something else that matters to the audience, right? And so this top of funnel stuff, and if you want to get more traffic to your website and more traffic and interest in your business, you don't write about your business. You write about other things that people care about in your target audience. And I'll make a note of this though. It is okay to mention yourself in this stuff. For instance, Nuvi might write a very top of funnel piece of content that has nothing to do with what Nuvi does, which is social media monitoring and social media analytics and social media posting and things like that. They might do something like, oh, hey, what is it? Content strategy. Nuvi does nothing with content strategy. But look, you guys care about this. And so we're doing a webinar on it. And guess what? One of the things that might help with your content strategy just happens to be monitoring social media for information about your target audience, right? So having that one thing in there that does mention you is very beneficial.
Yeah, I like to look at some of my favorite brands: GoPro, Red Bull, Nike, even Coca Cola. A lot of their advertisements, a lot of their content. It's not look, this camera it has a 10 megapixel camera and it's in HD. No, they show a skier flying off of a cliff, doing a 360 backflip, whatever.
While chugging a can of soda.
Yeah, and landing it, or maybe not landing it. Maybe that's the whole point: is that the content is not necessarily about them. The content is content that people want to watch and see and view. But then also you can interject a little bit about the camera or show it on the helmet or whatever it is you're trying to do. But the content is not about that person. It's not about the stats or the company or the brand or the return policy or whatever it is. It's about the actual thing that you're going to be able to do with it and the thing that the customer is going to enjoy.
Right. And so this goes to the thought leadership part of it. What do you want to be the expert in? And what do you want to teach people about? This is where you teach. This is the teaching area. The next, and then hopefully you can find a way to get them engaged with some piece of content, and then they'll give you hopefully some contact information. You can send them additional content that kind of pushes them down through the funnel, right? Now, this middle area is where they become the leads. Now, this is where they've identified their problem and they're looking for a solution to their problem. And you still don't necessarily want to write about yourself. The temptation here is to be like, okay, you have that problem, we are your solution, and have that be a one-to-one ratio type thing. But really, what you want to do is say, here's your problem. Now, here's the way you can solve that problem. And this can also mention a little about what you do, but it's still not about you as a brand. You still don't want to write, if Nuvi has somebody that says, hey, I need to learn more about my social media. I need more insights from my social media so that we can make real business decisions. We might say, oh, by the way, Nuvi does this and that and this and that. But a better approach would be like, hey, Nuvi has worked with other customers, and this is what we found is the best solution to your problem. You should monitor Twitter, and depending on your business model, maybe LinkedIn and then you can pull that information, and this is the type of report you should send, and that will get you what you need. And by the way, as a side note, Nuvi can help you with that, but it doesn't necessarily need to, right? And then they go, wow, that's really great information. You really know what you're talking about. That could really, really help me. And two and two together, like, you guys do this. all the time. And I'm already swamped at my own job. I've already got my own responsibilities. I don't need to add that responsibility. So maybe now I talk to your salesperson, right? And so without even talking about Nuvi in particular, a Nuvi salesperson could potentially, help someone become a lead and get them through the process just by telling them more about what a solution to their problem is and trying to help them through that solution rather than trying to sell the product, right? And that's the whole premise of inbound marketing is you give and you give and you give that value and you give some more until the person says, I can solve it on my own, or they say, how about you just do it for me, right? And that's kind of the whole goal. And then finally down at the bottom, the sales, I actually clicked. The sales part of it is about you. This is where you're differentiating yourself from your competition. So this is about your case studies, your use cases, the metrics that are stacking up against your competitors, how that all works together. The sales part of it, and this is used on the website as well as through salespeople, that content needs to be about you. Whether if you're an e-commerce site, this is your product descriptions. This is videos that are about your product. The specs of your product. Those kinds of pieces are the sales. The sales funnel part of it. And if you're a B2B company, it's the demo itself. It's an infographic about specifically how you helped somebody. It's a case study that you can send to somebody who's very specific to an industry or something like that, right? Now, if you're looking at this, and Scott, did you have any other thoughts on
I just keep
any of
going
that?
back to the ATV, our question about the ATV guy, and that the things that set apart ATVs versus motorcycles, or the things that set that business and that company apart, could be, you're the expert in the industry, your customer service is the best. If you ever have a problem with your ATV, those are very specific solutions and the details to your product or service.
Right. So now the big question then that was asked earlier is how do you then decide on which type of content to create? Now this goes back to the research that you've already done. Earlier we talked about how you want to see what your current content is doing. Where does that fit into the funnel? So you may have a top level infographic here, and you might have a great demo down here, but you're noticing that you get a bunch of traffic to the website, but you're not converting those people to actual sales conversations. Somehow they're falling out of the funnel, in whatever way. So now this is the area I need to focus on right now, and this will change throughout the year, and so this is why you need to continue to evaluate and kind of measure where things are going well in order to make that happen, right? In addition, at the same time, you could be getting a lot of great sales stuff. Oh, where's the drawing? There we go. Sales people, and once they get to a sale, they convert almost every time. But the problem is there aren't enough people going to your site. There's not enough traffic. There's not enough stuff there for people to be interested, or they're not finding you. You don't have enough SEO value. You don't have enough social media following. You might have to pay for some ads in order to get people here. But if you're going to do that, you want to make sure you have a piece of content that will engage them and will entertain them. And so maybe this is now your main focus for your content strategy over the next 6 months. You want to do something that's more entertaining, get more traffic to your website so that you have a better chance of getting them down to the sales process that works, right? And so that's kind of where you need to, if you can build your strategy and think of it in this funnel area, you can do a great job of getting the types of content that you need at each step of the way. So what I would do then is, again, I would take every buyer persona and do this. Buyer persona number 1. It's really hard to draw on a laptop. Number 1, right? And you do this whole process. You say, okay, this is the 2 or 3 pieces of content we're going to do to drive traffic to the website. And then once they drive traffic to the website, hopefully we can capture their email using this mid to top funnel piece of content that requires a form submission, right? Now, once we have that, we're going to email them so that they can get down into the leads, and we're going to email them this piece of content that we're creating in 3 months, right? Or this piece of content that is a use case that kind of tells a little bit more about us and kind of pushes them toward the sales process, right? And then we're going to have the sales team reach out to them, and they're going to deliver this case study, and we're going to ask them for a demo, and you can map out the whole journey, what is there. And then you say, well, we already have this part. We already have this part. So we still need to create this and this and this and this in order to make that happen. So that's kind of how I would go about doing this in your business. Once you've done the research, you've done the buyer persona research, we've done all the other things that we've already talked about today, then you can put this together in a very functional and very a great workflow for how this would work, right? And that's really the goal, is you want to have one of these funnels for every single one of your buyer personas, so that you can make sure you cater to them. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't use the same piece of content potentially for each one. You don't have to create a brand new piece of content for each stage. You can reuse, recycle, tweak a little bit for here and there. Again, don't recreate the wheel. Reuse as much stuff as you can. Be thrifty with your resources on this, so that you can have more resources to then distribute that content out to your target audience.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there's not anyone that's listening that has all of the resources that they need, all of the team members that they need, all of the budget that they need. You have to be creative in marketing in order to produce exactly what you need. So reuse that content and adjust it to what you need and done. When I hear content overload, I don't think about all the things that I see or get shown. When I think of content overload, I think of all the things that I need to create, all the things that we need to write, all the things that we need to build. And by taking that piece of content and tweaking it for a different audience, it makes it a lot easier to manage my day to day, because in marketing, it's rare to have everything you ever want. Because I mean, that would take all the fun out of it, right? You got to do with what you got. So make sure that you adjust it, but make sure you reuse it as well.
Okay, perfect. We had one question come in. Is it a mistake to let a blog be anything other than traffic based? This is a great question. The primary objective of your blog is to generate traffic, right? Now, that doesn't necessarily need to be the only thing to do it. So I don't necessarily think it's a mistake to let a blog be anything other than traffic based. But if we come back to this funnel, a blog can fit in anywhere on this thing. So I think it would be a mistake to only let a blog have only topics that fit in here. I think a lot of blog content should be this traffic based up here, and have those general topics. But I think it's also a great idea to have maybe a blog post about your company and exactly what you're doing, or how, or a case study. A blog is also a great way to promote the other pieces of content that you have. If you have an ebook or a webinar, things like that, it's a great idea to post a little blurb on your blog that has a link to the registration page with a landing page for download or whatever. You could also have additional things for how you solve this problem. That not necessarily using our service, but you can if you want. I think it's a mistake to only focus on traffic specific topics, but I don't necessarily think it's a mistake to say the blog should not only be traffic based, because that is still the ultimate goal. Whether you're focusing on the topic in the traffic, or the topic in the leads, or the topic in the sales, you're still going to want to generate traffic out of that, no matter where you're doing that. But if you do, a bunch of different topics like this, your sales team could be just as effective sending a blog post that's specific to your company as it would a very well designed data sheet. The data sheets and stuff like that, maybe they feel too salesy to some people, and they prefer something like an informal blog about it. And so but again, that is still driving traffic to it and all that kind of stuff.
And
right?
and you can reuse that blog. I mean, write that blog. You're going to do all the research. You're going to know everything about the content in that blog. Turn that blog into a one-sheeter. Turn that blog into a case study. Turn that blog into an infographic. Reuse that blog, so it's not just traffic based. It's not just a blog. It becomes other assets that you can use throughout this funnel in your content creation.
So hopefully that answered your question a little bit. All right. And so finally, once you have this, this is the nitty gritty. Again, you should take some good time mapping this out in a way that you think makes sense. And then later on, continue to evaluate on a quarterly or monthly basis to say, okay, this is still the problem we're having. Let's continue to do this. Or it seems that we've solved this problem of getting more traffic into the website. Now there's there's always going to be another problem to solve. And so then you've kind of figured out, okay, now our content strategy needs to focus on this problem. And so once you have that, you kind of move on a little bit to creating a content calendar. What is the time frame for how this is going to be created? And how much effort you need to put on. This will help you focus on the things that are the right things to focus on, and it won't make it feel so overwhelming. If you have a funnel strategy that you've written out and you're like, holy smokes, like that is so much stuff that we got to build. That is so much stuff we got to distribute. This is going to cost a lot. There's going to be a lot of writing, a lot of revisions. Like it kind of gets, it kind of weighs down on you a little bit. But if you say, okay, cool, but we can do this in the next year or the next 6 months, then it's like, okay, cool. For this month, we're only focusing on this one idea. And for this one idea, we've created an infographic, we've created an ebook, we've created a webinar, or we've created a video, or we've created a bunch of product descriptions or an email, whatever it is. Then you can map it all out, and it's like eating that saying that you eat an elephant one bite at a time, type of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's just piece by piece, you can kind of see where that goes. And it's a business. You can't expect your business to be perfect and run perfectly from day one. It's going to be a process over years, to perfect your content strategy. But there's a lot you can do right away, to make that happen. Okay, cool. So now let's get down to the nitty gritty, which is not so much the nitty gritty. I just really kind of like this slide. We've already kind of hit the nitty gritty parts of the actual content strategy, but this is kind of just a few tips on things you can do to kind of help out with this process. Number one is you have to brainstorm content ideas. You have to have a specific idea for your content before you can create it. What topics are there? How do you find those topics? Again, my number one suggestion again is to talk to the salesperson, get the questions that are being asked, and write content based off of those ideas, right? That's the best way to do it. There are a bunch of tools that you can use that may not be specific for content creation, but are great ideas, right? So Quora is a great place to go because that's where people are asking questions that maybe they can't find an answer to online. Which is great for you because that means that if you were to create a piece of content answering that question, you're probably the only one talking about it because otherwise they would have found it on a Google search and wouldn't have asked the question on Quora. So that's a great thing to do. Uber suggests is, sorry, you had it.
One of my favorite things about brainstorming is you have to consume.
Right.
You can't just create content without consuming content. So by consuming content, I can't tell you how many times I've been in like a brainstorming, a whiteboard session. We got ideas all over. And the thing that comes into my head is the thing that I read or that I saw while I was watching television with my wife or whatever it is, right, that I consumed. I'm like, oh, I can take that idea and apply it to our business. And it will be completely, you can make it a completely original idea. It can be completely your own. You don't have to copy exactly what other people do. But by consuming and by understanding, just like Darren's suggesting here, like going to Quora, going to these places and consuming, you're better going to understand things that are already being translated for other companies and other businesses, but also just people are so creative. I watched a bad lip reading last night. My wife showed me this bad lip reading on YouTube of the presidential inauguration, and it was one of the funniest ones. I was laughing so hard because, I mean, it doesn't matter what side you're on. They had past presidents. They had even Supreme Court justices up there swearing in the president, but they're saying like the funniest things, and he's just like, the people are so creative, and I consider myself somewhat creative, and so when I see people that are just, man, they just nail it so perfectly, it inspires me to, okay, how can we do this for our company or our business, but also too, like, I'll log that in my brain somehow, and then when I have these brainstorming sessions, I'm able to regurgitate it, or like, hey,
Right.
I saw this awesome idea. How can we use that here? And so by consuming, you understand.
Yeah, those are great points. And on that note, this BuzzSumo tool, basically you type in a keyword and it comes out and spits out the most shared pieces of content on that topic, right? So it's a great place to start. And one of my favorite things to do is say, wow, that is the number one shared piece of content. I bet I can do that better. And by tweaking it just this way, I can do this even better than they could and potentially, be that number one spot on BuzzSumo, right? And so, depending on what your industry is, BuzzSumo is a great tool to just go search a couple keywords and get all the top content for a specific time period and go from there. Uber Suggest, I clicked on it. Uber Suggest is more of a keyword research tool for SEOs, which is really interesting because basically what it does is you type in a Google search query and it comes out with all the different variations of that. that in the order that they're most commonly searched, right? So if you have a content idea, you can stick it into Uber Suggest, and it comes out with a bunch of different, just very minor tweaks to that idea to make it so that you might have 3 or 4 great content ideas that are just different enough to be individually valuable. And then finally, HubSpot and many others, they have like a blog title generation tool where you type in like 2 or 3 words and it creates like a compelling blog title out of those 2 or 3 words. And so it kind of gives you a bunch of different ideas based off of 1 or 2 keywords that you can write about for the future. So these are some interesting tools that you can use to do that. Um, Sarah has a question. Does sharing content from relevant organizations, industries, or topics increase traffic for your business or more for the businesses who produce that content? Is sharing existing content beneficial at all? This is a great question. And I know that there's a lot of debate about that for digital marketers. My personal opinion on this matter, and I've seen this work so many times, and we actually do this with Nuvi a little bit, is we have our newsletter, and our newsletter is literally the top 6 social media marketing posts for that week, right? Or for the last 2 weeks. And it doesn't matter if it's a Nuvi post or not. We'll generally post a Nuvi thing in there just because, we obviously want to promote Nuvi as well. But people enjoy and love just getting information from you, right? And again, this goes back to, what do you want to be a thought leader or an expert in? What topics do you want to own? And if you own those topics, share other people's stuff. Why should you reinvent the wheel and only focus on the things that you spent all your time and all your money creating when other people have created great content as well that you can hit a throw out to? You can say, this is a great post. This really hits the nail on the head. It wasn't from us. Good on you, so-and-so, right? And actually, that person goes, wow, that was a great shout out from Nuvi or from your business or whatever. Next time they post something, I'm going to do the same thing for them. And we can kind of cross promote each other, right? Now, initially speaking, there you can be said that like if you share something on social or through email that drives traffic to their website, yeah, I think initially speaking, it does benefit them more than it benefits you, but who cares? If it's benefiting both of you, regardless of the level of benefit, it doesn't matter. If you're still getting benefit because they get trust in your emails, they understand that your emails come with actual value, they'll open the next one. Or the social media account that has a lot of great information, I'm going to continue to check out the social media account, and I know that the stuff they post is valuable and good, regardless of whether they created it or not. And so in the long run, it can provide huge benefit, especially if you can team up with other brands and other partners and other thought leaders that have their own followings. If you can even get one post shared by those people because you shared theirs, you really tap into an entirely different audience that you had no access to before. And so I strongly suggest posting other people's content, sharing other people's content, as long as it's not your competitor. Do not share your competitor stuff, but third-party resources or things that are slightly different than you, I would highly suggest doing that. Hopefully that answers your question a little bit more.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree with what Darren's referencing there. Sharing is caring, right? And as long as you're sharing relevant information, up to date information that your audience, again, as your audience, will consume and understand, you're just becoming another source. Think of every news station you've ever watched. They're not creating every piece of content in that. They're sharing news stories that come from other sources. They're sharing information that comes from someone that posted their information to Facebook or to Twitter. And according to the Twitter account, the thing we were reading about yesterday was Elon Musk from Tesla has shared on his Twitter account that he wants to start digging holes so that he can avoid traffic. And so he's going to buy a machine to dig a hole so he can avoid traffic. And people are sharing that and reporting on that. And so by sharing those news sources, by sharing relevant content, by sharing articles or blog posts that are relevant to your audience, one, they're going to trust you more as a news source, but they're also going to trust you as a thought leader. Very, very relevant to share. Sharing is caring, for sure.
And how many Instagram accounts are hugely popular solely posting other people's stuff, right? There's a huge benefit to sharing other people's stuff, no matter what industry, no matter what type of business you run.
And as you become bigger and more popular, people will be they will be begging you to share things. and that then you can become the filter and decide what to share and what not to share.
Right. Okay, perfect. Let's move on to the next slide. What kind of content are you going to create? Again, this goes back to that question of for your buyer persona, what types of content might you create for them, based off of what they like, right? Now, we have a little bit of a guideline here. There's B2B versus B2C. Here's the types of content that B2B people generally engage with: ebooks, white papers, case studies, webinars, videos, blogs, and emails. Those are kind of the core content types that B2B companies or people who are working with B2B are interested in. For B2C, it's quite a bit different, because if you're reaching out for B2C, the sales cycle is much shorter. There's usually no one-on-one interaction at the end with the salesperson. It doesn't take as much nurturing. People buy things a lot quicker in their personal lives than they do at work. And so that's kind of the big thing. So product descriptions, videos, blogs, emails are huge for this. Social media strategies, product comparisons, things like that give people the information they need to make a decision without ever talking to anybody. Those are the things that you want to focus on for B2C. And so just kind of a quick rundown of what kinds of content are good for each one. And then finally, once you've done all of this and you've done all the creation, you launch your content, right? So there's a few things to consider when launching your content. Number one, I had a typo here. Where will the content be housed? Is it going to be on your blog? Or you have a resources page on your website? Are you only going to put it on your YouTube channel or on your Facebook? Is your email only going to be sent once or 3 times? Where are you using a marketing automation platform? Are you using some sort of email platform? Where are you going to keep all this? Where's it all going to be organized? Where can people find it? Number 2, what do I expect in exchange for my content? Now, for that top level traffic area where it's just entertainment, there's not really any value that they can't, entertainment's cheap. Realistically, online you can find entertainment basically anywhere. No one's going to give you their phone number just to see your cool new video about Nike shoes on basketball. Like, that just doesn't happen. But if you want to say, hey, get 10% off, or whatever, then in order to get that 10% off, then they do have to give you some sort of exchange, of contact information or value. Then that makes sense. Ebooks, webinars, these all have sign-up forms, not just so that you can get access to it. But so that we can have your email address, and hopefully you guys will engage with us later on, right? That's the whole idea. So you kind of have to measure what you think the perceived value of your content is to your target audience, and then ask for something in exchange for that. Usually it's first name, last name, email, maybe company name, maybe phone number, especially for like something that's bottom funnel, like a demo request. Then you can start asking things like, okay, here's your company, here's your phone number, how many employees do you have? Things like that. Just keep in mind that the more you ask for, the less often someone's going to give you that much information. They have to really see a very high perceived value to fill out a long form to get that content. And then finally, how do I follow up after the content is viewed? You don't want to say, here's our great piece of content, enjoy, and then have that be it, right? You want to be able to have a way to follow up with another piece of content, or to ask them questions about how they liked it or how it could be better, or, to refer them to someone else, or some other way to follow up on that content without having them, have to come back to the website. Okay. And then we move on from, actually just, launching your content to publishing and promoting it and getting traction from that.
Yeah. So when you go to publish and promote your content, you're going to, again, you need to know your audience, and you need to know exactly where they consume the content. Is it they're going to be through email? Like I mentioned earlier, like I'm going to be paying attention to my email specifically. Is it going to be through SEO? Like are people Googling how to do their job or how to do specific things, and you're going to be able to make it so your content is the top answer or is towards the top of those answers. Are you going to distribute your content through social media? A lot of times we like to use social media to distribute snippets of the content. That way you can see a little piece of it, but then it will direct you or link you to the actual blog post, or it will link you to the infographic or the different pieces there. Are you going to use social ads to promote your content? Are you trying to generate clicks and follows and getting people to come download the piece of content, or again, what Darren was talking about, that exchange. or are you going to be distributing content through your different keywords in your PPC campaigns? Again, you really need to know your audience and what best suits them and what best resonates with them. And by doing in figuring that out, you do it. Just try it. Try different things. See what resonates. See what works. We kind of outlined there earlier what works for B2B and what works for B2C, but feel free to mix it up. Try something different. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, you have a piece of content that you can use for something else. If the email doesn't convert and doesn't work, try using that piece of content in a video or in a webinar or in a social media post. But there's all those different distribution methods there.
And to go along with this, with the distribution method, some of these cost money. I think that goes without saying. So when you're creating your content strategy, you also need to be aware of what kind of budget you're working with for distribution, and that will kind of tie into, what your timeline is and what your strategy is. Because if you don't have the budget to push out the 5 pieces of content you have slated to create in the next 2.5 months, then there was no point in creating those that quickly, right? And so be aware of the budget, be aware of how you want to promote that content, and make sure that that factors into your decisions as to what piece of content to create sooner, and kind of what the timeline or what the content calendar looks like. And then finally, analyze your results. This is kind of a big thing that I think a lot of people fail on. Number one is you need to have a way to track the distribution methods of your content. If you haven't already done some research on how to do that, there's something called a UTM parameter that you add to a link that's being added to your email or to your social media. And what that does is it basically tells your analytics platform where exactly that traffic is coming from. Because when you're in analytics, things can be a bit foggy. They can be a bit hard to understand, because a lot of the time Google processes your information in kind of some weird and crazy ways, and it doesn't necessarily make sense all the time. But if you use these UTM parameters, you can track exactly, what traffic came to this page from my email, what traffic came to this page from my social media post, and did they convert or did they not convert? And that really kind of helps to really peg down what is working with your content strategy, what is not working with your content strategy. Another big thing on this is the landing pages. If you have some sort of downloadable content, keep track of how your landing page is converting. Your landing page itself is a piece of content. So you need to say, is it the landing page, or is it the offer, or is it the ad? And you need to have some sort of skill in identifying where the holes are. And that really just takes some practice and experience. And if you haven't done it yet, just start doing it and see what you can find out. I think you'll be able to pull some great insights from that. And as you keep doing it, you're going to find new ways of figuring out that information. Let's see if there's any other questions. More about UTM, N, please. So it's UTM as in U. What's a good unicorn? T is
Texas.
time, and then M as in like matrimony. UTM. So UTM, I don't really actually even know what it stands for, but if you do a search for UTM in Google, or UTM, or how to use UTM, there's a lot of walkthroughs on how to do that. Basically, in a nutshell, it takes the URL that they're trying to send people to, and it just adds some more text to the end of that URL. That doesn't change where the traffic goes at all. It just changes what information is passed on to Google. And then on that side, when you're in your Google Analytics account, when you go to your source or your medium, kind of the traffic sources, it will show up as whatever you put into that URL. So instead of, when you go into Google Analytics, you have your defaults, you have your email, your direct, your referral traffic, your organic traffic, and your paid traffic. And that can all be broken out into Facebook, whatever, right? But if you say, I want to be very specific to traffic on this particular campaign that we're running, then what you want to do is add a UTM thing that says, this is for my content marketing webinar campaign, right? And then anybody who clicks through that link will be tagged with that source. The source was content marketing email, right? And then you can kind of see, what all the metrics were in analytics for that. I won't dive into that too much, because I think we could probably have a whole webinar just on, how to track the success of your content marketing campaigns. But I would do a start with a Google search that just is how to use UTM parameters, and see what you can learn there. All right, perfect. Once you analyze your results, again, go through this process over and over and over again. Look at your funnel again and say, okay, cool. Now here we have the weaknesses that we can see. That's what we need to focus on. Or here's really a strength here. How can we get more stuff to go into that strength? That's really strong piece of my funnel. And just every once in a while, just refresh your strategy. It's not a bad thing to change your strategy. I've been in strategy meetings where we set up a huge strategy that was going to take a lot of work, and a month later we just realized that it wasn't the right strategy, and we scrapped the whole thing and started over. And you know what, it was worth it. It sucks to be like, yeah, we sat in that 5 hour meeting or whatever and created the strategy and started work on it, and then we had to scrap that. But it's even better to be like, but we feel even more confident in what we're doing now, right? And so that's a great way of doing that after you've analyzed your results. And then once you've analyzed, you iterate, you test, you try new things, you tweak things a little bit, see if you can get better results. If you have the landing pages, A/B test them. If you have ads, A/B test them. If you have content on your website, maybe try a few different ways of putting that on the homepage, or organization there to make sure that people get there, and just keep iterating over and over and over again, and you'll get better and better and better.
All right. Looks like we're finishing up here. We weren't able to get to everyone's questions. There are quite a few questions here still that we would love to address. But again, if you want to push those questions to webinars@nuvi.com, or you can even just hit us up on our Twitter handle @nuvi. We'll try to address as many of those questions as possible. Again, we will be putting this webinar on our YouTube channel later today. And for those of you that did sign up, we will be, of course, emailing this out to you. Is there anything else that we wanted to add to the end, Darren?
I don't think so. Again, just thank you. I know this webinar went way longer than it was advertised for, which is awesome. We love your questions. We love the engagement that we saw on here. Thank you again for being here and for taking your time. We appreciate it so much. We have a lot of fun doing this. And so, hopefully if you have additional questions, you can email me, Darren@foxtailmarketing.com, or scott.brown@nuvi.com. And ask any questions you want, and we'll help you however we can. And if you ever want to learn more about Nuvi, then just go ahead and reach out to us, and we'll get something set up so that you can get the information you need. But again, thank you so much for joining us. We love you guys. Hopefully we'll see you again in our next webinar. We'll be having one next month, so watch for an email on that, or the ads for that, or whatever it is however the distribution method is that we got it. All of you here will get an email about it, unless you've unsubscribed to our emails, in which case you should change that. But again, hopefully we'll see you next time, and we'll talk to you later.